after the show time. Love having you along. I think it was Debbie in the show today who had emailed and asked for my grandmother's pimento cheese recipe. And so I want to remind everybody it's online at murphysamandjodi.com. This is the recipe that I used to make with her in her kitchen, as a little girl. And I didn't know that, pimento cheese was sold in containers at Walmart or at grocery stores. I never saw it that way. I thought it was a homemade thing only.
Yeah.
And then I know there are some people who think it's only a thing that you buy in grocery stores already put together or on a restaurant menu. I think the first time I made it at home, Murphy, when we were newly married, I think you were like, "What? You're making what?" I remember your reaction being surprise.
Yeah, well, I think like anything, now that, foodies are everywhere, it's kind of become a culinary thing. That's why you see Chick-fil-A putting it on top of a chicken
Well, it's
breast
having
now.
its moment again. But did you grow up with anybody in your family making it homemade?
I don't know that anybody made it homemade.
Right.
The only kind that
That's why.
I remember was in the store.
Mm-mm.
It was overly soft and mushy.
Tiny little jar.
And not very... because your grandmother's uses the extra sharp cheddar, it has that real good flavor to it and that bite.
Right.
But I think maybe the kind I was having as a kid was some pre-processed.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was when you said little jar, it reminded me.
The skinny little tall jar.
I hate to say this, but one of my exes used to get that all the time.
Yeah.
It was like Old English or something
Exactly.
weird.
Exactly.
Was it really a little jar?
Yeah, it
was.
was tiny, and it was just like, that doesn't even look appetizing. Not
Right.
like real.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I only grew up knowing about real, homemade, grandma made it for church, pimento cheese, recipes. And so I want to tell you, no matter what your experience with it is, what's your history, I'm talking about today. I want to tell you 2 tricks, things that you have to do for it to be right.
Okay.
Ready? Number 1, it does need to be 2 different kinds of cheeses. You could do 3 different kinds, but it doesn't need to be all sharp cheddar or all medium cheddar or all sharp. It needs to be 2 different mixes.
But
I know
both cheddar.
No, it doesn't have to be.
Oh.
My
No.
grandmother's recipe is 2 cups of extra sharp and 2 cups of sharp. She liked it to go pow in the mouth. Like it needed to be strong, and that's how you get it strong.
And one of our favorite grocery store pimento cheeses has Gouda in it.
Right. You can
Oh.
do, but so the recommendation is at least 2 different kinds so that there's a couple of different cheese flavors. You can do anything, although I highly recommend one of them being extra sharp, because once you add mayo, you are sort of softening you're dulling it, if you will. It's supposed to be a strong flavor.
You're cutting the strength of it.
You're making it more dull, like the one in the little jar from the grocery store.
Yeah.
So extra sharp and sharp. And I've seen some really good extra sharp white cheddars that would be good with a yellow sharp. I haven't made it in a long time at home, Murphy. Maybe I will again really soon. So that's one thing you need to know. That's a trick. The other trick is that unless you're in a quick, hurry and you need to get it done quickly, I shred it, buy the block and shred it yourself because it just makes it better. It just tastes better. If you buy the bag cheese, you can do that, but it's going to be not as moist. Sorry for the word. They
don't stick together. It's because they treat the pre-shredded cheese with stuff
Correct.
to keep it from clumping.
Like a powder.
And so when you put it in your recipe, it's going to try to
It's not
stay-
going to clump together like grandma's did. So you need to just get the box shredder out and shred the cheese and then measure it and do that. Then you put mayo in, and do like a couple of dollops. Now you just have to decide, you don't overdo the mayo, then you'll have to add cheese. Just, learn the thickness that you like. Another thing is about pimentos. Where do you get them? What are they?
Those do come in a jar.
They do. They come in a jar in the grocery store. They can kind of be hard to find.
Yeah.
Well, there's basically just red bell pepper is what they are.
Well, yeah, it's a pimento pepper is a pepper, although it's not hot at all. It's actually sweet. And you do need to drain it before you chop it up on a board and put it in with the cheese and the mayo and the seasonings. We'll get to the seasonings. But if you cannot find pimentos in a jar, then you can substitute roasted red peppers in a jar, and you can find those easily.
Yeah.
So that's a good substitute. But the real pimentos are actually kind of slippery, and they are sweet to the taste. And then my grandmother used to do salt, garlic powder, and onion powder. And every once in a great while, she would do red pepper. But another trick, and this is not in my recipe because this is not for everyone, but we never stirred it with a mixer. A lot of people you see, online do it with a hand mixer, like stir it up like that. And you could do that, but just be careful not to get it too soft.
Yeah.
And we would do it by hand, and it was hard. It's tough to stir.
Oh, that's a lot of
It's
cheese.
work. Yeah. And so the way that if she ever had pepper jelly, we would serve pepper jelly on top of it.
Ooh.
And that gives it even more kick. It's crazy good. And that's why the Chick-fil-A sandwich makes me crazy. It's like reminds me of my grandmother in so many ways because it has the hot component with the pimento cheese. So she didn't always have pepper jelly though. Like, you know what I mean? So sometimes we would
That's a specialty item. I mean, I could see how, because until I met you, that was never the way it was served.
Right.
But, when you were talking about the kind that was in the store as kids, it actually wasn't a small jar. It was a flat plastic tub.
There was a small jar too, though.
Right. But it was in small amounts, which I guess because cheese is something I guess we're not really supposed to consume in mass, all that stuff to resist because it's so good. So it was never served in like massive containers. Yeah. Pimento cheese was like a light spread, I guess, that you weren't serving to a crowd. You were just putting it on crackers occasionally or something like that.
It was more of a cracker spread, whereas now today it's going on sandwiches.
It's a dip, it's a sandwich.
What's so funny that you're saying that is in my family, my grandmother did make big containers of it, and it was in Tupperware, and you would put it on bread, and you would eat a sandwich. You would eat a pimento cheese sandwich.
Right.
And then every once in a while, when my pawpaw was on a low-carb diet, but she did that before it was cool, before the world knew who Dr. Atkins was, my pawpaw would go on a low-carb diet. And she would make pimento cheese for him, and she would serve it to him on celery sticks. And that's a cute way to eat it, too. If you did a pimento cheese board today, you could do pimento cheese in the middle, and you could do celery sticks and, crisp peppers, red peppers, green peppers to dip it in, and then all kinds of crackers. I would suggest heavy crackers, like Melba toast and, crunchy, heavy ones that can hold it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is the...
Yes, it is.
Kraft jar.
The little skinny.
It's about 4 inches tall and skinny.
Yeah, my mom liked that too. But
you could find this in like the Velveeta section.
It was a small amount of a little cracker spread. And we all said the same thing. That's not enough pimento cheese. That's not what Mama makes. That's not what Mama makes.
So, I guess I would have to look. My grandmother wrote a cookbook, or she put her family recipes down into a cookbook. And
if she didn't make it, she didn't make it.
No, she did, but she called it pimento spread.
Yeah.
That's what it was called, and she did put it in celery sticks. It wasn't served any way other than celery sticks.
Yeah, we had different family traditions. But
so maybe that's what I'm thinking also is the sweet. I need to go find that recipe now because I never really had great pimento cheese until what your grandmother made. And now there's some delis that just make it right. Great, you know what I mean?
It's like an old,
it's become
recipe.
Its own thing that's next level. Yeah.
Yeah. And what's funny about it is that I think that when I say they, I mean that generation, they made it out of necessity. It's like you didn't have ham and turkey. You would make tuna fish, or you would make chicken salad from a can, or you would make pimento cheese. If you happen to have enough cheese in the fridge, you didn't have to have a recipe. You just made it. Mm-hmm. In fact, that's why it's sometimes hard for me to convey these recipes to you, because I grew up making them with my grandmother. And she was like, you don't need to measure anything, baby. Let's just put it in there and see what it tastes like and looks good.
That's what I was going to ask you a few minutes ago. You said a couple dollops of mayonnaise.
I know.
I didn't look at the recipe.
2 tablespoons.
Does it have a measurement, or is it dollops?
It just says mayo.
Yeah.
But I can tell you it's about 2 tablespoons to start.
Uh-huh.
And if you like it creamier, you can add more. Some people add whipped cream cheese to pimento cheese to make it creamier and make it a different texture. My grandmother never did that.
Man,
did that. Ooh. So the very basic recipe that I made with her is on our website for you at murphysamandjodi.com. Add anything you want. Add some drained chili peppers. Add some little chopped up jalapenos. You can do anything to it that you want. But I'm telling you, if you happen to have pepper jelly, serve it on a piece of bread or a cracker with a little bit of pepper jelly on top, and it's a happy day. Murphy can tell you.
Definitely.
Missed any part of the show? Get it all on the Murphy, Sam, and Jodi podcast.